Hi, everybody. I have really enjoyed connecting and chatting with those of you who have left comments and shared your stories or asked questions. And what I'm hearing from so many of you is something that I understand. It can feel so good to hear someone else speaking about this issue who has been through it and can relate. I think so many of us, if not all of us, just spent so much of our lives feeling alone since we didn't understand what was going on with our mothers. For me, I felt for so many years that I was the only person in the entire world who had a mother that acted this way. And when I began to have the words to describe what was going on, and I learned that other people had been through this too, it's not that I'm happy that you've suffered, but we're going through this together. We're not alone, and we can learn from each other. We can be encouraged by each other. And I'm so thankful for all of you who have taken the time to share your own stories and experiences. It really brings so much healing and joy to my own heart. I've talked a lot about my story, things I've been through on this journey. Today, I'm going to share an important milestone on my healing journey. I began to see a therapist about 1.5 years after I decided to go no contact with my mom. I do want to emphasize that if you decide to see a therapist, which I strongly urge you to do if that's possible, make sure you see a therapist who is very knowledgeable about narcissistic parental abuse. It can actually be quite damaging to see a therapist who isn't. Soon, I'm going to share a video all about how I found my therapist and recommendations and steps to help you find someone who has that skill set. But the therapist I found was just perfect for me. She helped me see that the biggest problem I face in my relationships and my interactions with other people is fear. I've always said, I freeze up, I get uncomfortable or awkward. She helped me see that the reason I had those feelings is because I'm afraid. And it makes sense. My mother has always treated me like it's just awful having me around. It's very difficult to tolerate me. And it's not like this came from a person who was disliked by lots of people. What my mom displays to the world is so different than the way she acts with me. She does so many kind things, really over-the-top kind things for other people because she wants to hear that praise and affirmation afterwards. And so it's not like she has a lot of close relationships. She doesn't really have any close relationships, but she has a lot of people who like her. And so as a child and a teenager and even into my adult years, it's no wonder that seeing this person who seemed to be generally well-liked did not like me. And so it's been very hard for me to believe that anyone would really enjoy being around me. And I tend to approach all of my interactions with people with the assumption that if I am not very careful, then I'm going to bother them, I'm going to burden them. And on top of that, because I've suffered so much rejection from my own mother that was so traumatizing to me, that I'm very fearful of rejection. And that just creates this perfect storm where I'm so afraid I will cause a person to not like me, to not enjoy being around me, or that I'll bother them, combined with this fear of rejection. That's been a huge barrier in developing really solid friendships in my life. My therapist helped me see that I tend to sabotage healthy relationships before they really have much chance to go anywhere. There seems to always be this point where I start to get so fearful, the relationship is becoming more deep, and then I get this uncomfortable feeling that soon they're going to see what I'm really like, and I'm going to start to irritate them and bother them, and they won't be able to stand being around me. And so I kind of ghost them. I don't just disappear, but I start getting together less often. I respond to them less because I don't want to look that interested and then be rejected. I didn't really realize I do that until I went through several therapy sessions talking about different people I've met and how that has gone. I've even heard of people who reject others before they have the chance to be rejected themselves, and I did not recognize that that's what I had been doing. So I asked my therapist, well, what do I do? She said a big part of it really is just pushing through those fears and trusting that that won't happen. She said, rather than assuming right off the bat that I'm bothering them, look for signs that maybe they're ready for the conversation to wind down, or maybe they need to go. But give them the chance and give myself the chance and see what happens. Well, it happened to work out that right then I had the perfect opportunity to try that. So we spent 2 years living in an RV and traveling full-time, living off-grid. It was absolutely amazing, a very healing journey for me. And we spent a summer in northern Maine, and I had come to know this guy named John. We had a lot of common interests. He was a bit older than me, but he had a PhD in education, and he does a lot of work during the school year in Thailand, teaching parents and teachers to allow children to have more say in their lives and their education. Now, that's something I'm very personally interested in. I've been very involved in my own son's education and have taken a student-led approach, which has been amazing for him. So this was something I was very interested in hearing about and talking with him about and sharing my own experiences and what I've learned with my own son. He was just such a fun and interesting person to talk to. I met his wife eventually. She was so fun. They live in Thailand during the school year, and then they come to this little cabin they have in Maine for the summers. And the campground we were staying at, he would walk over there frequently to use the restroom and the showers and those facilities because his cabin didn't have that, and it was right next door to the campground, so we saw each other quite a bit. It was fun at first, but then I reached that point I always do, where we were talking about deeper things, and I became very afraid. I was just so sure that I was going to annoy him or bother him. By coincidence, we both went to the laundromat on Sunday mornings to do our laundry, and that's often when we would speak to each other. But for the past few Sundays when all this happened, I hadn't been going on Sundays. I was avoiding him. And my therapist asked me, is he giving you any signs that he does not enjoy talking to you? And I thought about it. He would come and knock on our trailer door just to come by and suggest some local activities, and we'd hang out and talk at the picnic table outside. If he really didn't want to spend time with me, why was he coming to our camper and knocking on the door? It was hard for me to truly believe that this man and his wife really did enjoy spending time with me. But I decided to take her advice. She gave me an assignment that week. We were actually leaving the following Monday. It was in the fall, it was getting pretty cold, and it was time to move on. So my assignment was to go to the laundromat on Sunday and spend some time with him and trust that he would enjoy that. So I did, and it was amazing to me how shook up I was doing something so simple. It really showed me that she's right. I'm very fearful in my interactions with people. My heart was racing. I was so nervous just to go sit at a laundromat and talk with somebody I really enjoyed talking with. So I did it. We get to the laundromat. I unloaded all my stuff. I walked in the door, and he wasn't there. And I thought, oh, great. I just pushed through all this, and he's not even doing laundry today. So there was this amazing pancake restaurant across the street that my son and I like to go to at times on the weekends. So I said to my son, let's just go across the street and we'll eat at the restaurant while we wait for the laundry to get done. So we did. We had ordered our food, and we were sitting just inside the door that was the entrance to the restaurant. It was pretty small, so you literally just walked in, our booth was right there to the left. So we ordered our food, and all of a sudden, John walked in through the door. And he looked over and saw me and greeted me. And my first instinct was to say hello and to just sort of shift my body so that I was turning away from him. Like, he was to my right and I was going to just shift my body more to the left. And I'm so thankful that my therapist challenged me to push through those fears, because I made myself not do that. I looked up at him and I invited him to join us for breakfast. I was almost paralyzed in fear in that moment. Here was this well-educated person who had a very successful career. I just felt like somebody like that wouldn't want to be around me. He accepted my invitation and sat at the table. He ordered his food. We chatted for a while. And then he told me he had gone to the laundromat, but was running late that morning. And he really wanted to see me because he knew we were leaving the next day. So when he got there and we weren't there, he drove all the way back to the campground and went to our camper and saw that we weren't there. And then he said he stood there for a few minutes and thought, you know what, they like to go to the pancake restaurant. Maybe they're there. So he drove all the way back into town and went to the restaurant and found me. And I realized this person really wanted to be my friend. He had gone through all that to make sure he got to see me and visit with me before we left. And had I not been going to therapy, and had I not become more consciously aware of this problem I had, he would have done all that and walked through the door and just had my back turned to him. I imagine I would have really hurt his feelings. I began to wonder how many other people through the course of my life really desired a friendship with me, and I sabotaged it. I do have friends in my life that are very important to me, but I have struggled maintaining long-term relationships. I tend to limit how much time I spend with people. I just disappear from them for a while. And now I better understand why. I was just so afraid of losing that person. And because of that fear, I actually did lose some people. And I almost lost a friend in Maine because of it. Now, it's not like that happened and all the fear just went away. That was over a year ago, and I still struggle with it very much. I'm sure it takes a long time to overcome that. I've lived with that fear for over 40 years. It's not going to disappear in a matter of months or even a year. But I have been pushing past those fears. And because of that, some friendships of mine that had been pretty shallow are now becoming so much better and so much deeper. I'm trusting that person. I'm trusting myself. And I know it's going to get better from here. I hope this story encourages you to reflect a little bit on how you interact with people. It would be completely normal and natural for you to be fearful like I am if you have a mother like mine. We have suffered immense rejection from the one person who was supposed to accept and love us unconditionally. How could we not be afraid? But the reasons our mothers have rejected us in the way they have, they're not real. They're in her head. They're made up. We were treated that way because our mothers have a severe mental disorder, and they needed a scapegoat child to cast all their negative feelings about themselves onto. It had nothing to do with us. It has helped me to reflect on that every single day. You are a survivor of a very painful and damaging type of abuse. And no, you probably didn't get out of that unscathed, but you made it. If you're here on this channel seeking support, understanding, and help, then that shows how strong you are, that you're not giving up. You're looking for answers and for hope, and you'll find them. If you'd like to share some of your own stories, or you just want to talk or ask questions about how I've pushed through these fears, I'm happy to talk to you. Please comment whatever you'd like in the comments below. I check this channel every day, and I'd be happy to talk with you. I'll see you next week, and please remember, to all my fellow survivors, you are worthy, you are valuable, and you are beautiful, whether your mom sees that or not.